Hey there everybody and welcome back. I'm your host Joshua Ryan. We've seen lots of interpretations of Batman over the years. Some of them were dark and gritty, some of them were silly and goofy, and some of them had very prominent nipples. But we've never seen him like this.
I've been trying to reach you. Find the gun!
He goes by many names: Vengeance, the Dark Knight, the world's greatest detective. But until now, we haven't seen him doing much detecting. Well, that changes with this movie, because in Matt Reeves' The Batman, we see the masked vigilante taken back to his detective roots. I mean, he got his start in a true detective story and was presented as a sort of masked and mysterious Sherlock Holmes type. This was back when DC was still called Detective Comics. Now, the Batman is a murder mystery through and through, and despite having some of Gotham City PD's finest on the case, they can't seem to crack it. That's when Lieutenant Gordon decides to bring in the Batman to help. And you heard me right, it's Lieutenant Gordon. He isn't Commissioner just yet. This movie skips over Batman's origin. We all know little Brucey was an orphan who was so afraid of bats that he started to dress like one. But he isn't a polished or proven Batman yet either. He's a rookie, 2 years into his career as an insomniac crime fighter with a cape, and until this point, he's only faced off against street-level thugs, easy targets, thieves, and drug peddlers who make for great punching bags and piñatas. This case is different though. Batman has proven that he can punch a man and then punch him a bunch more, but the Riddler will test the Batman on an intellectual level. And when he starts leaving letters addressed directly to the Batman at the scenes of each crime, the Caped Crusader becomes entangled in the mystery on a deeper level than he expected. Everybody knows the Riddler. Jim Carrey's over-the-top and ham-fisted performance in the Batman Forever film isn't exactly a highlight of the Batman's rogues gallery. I mean, the best thing to come out of that movie was Kiss from a Rose by Seal, and great. Now I have Kiss from a Rose stuck in my head. Paul Dano brings the Riddler to a darker and more demented place. We don't really see his face very often, but even from behind the leather mask straight out of the 50 Shades of Grey pleasure room, he gives a performance that chills to the core. He's brilliant and absolutely demented at the same time. And it's not just Dano, but the entire cast. Everybody succeeds here, and there isn't a weak link in the chain. Zoe Kravitz is an independent and driven Selina Kyle. Her Catwoman works as the perfect romantic interest for Batman. Jeffrey Wright is amazing in everything he does, and Colin Farrell absolutely nails it as Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin. He's unrecognizable beneath the prosthetics, but he becomes the Penguin. He just becomes him. Like they're the same dude, from the accent to the cockiness to the untouchable mobster persona. All of it works, and I wouldn't change any of it. Robert Pattinson, who will forever and always be known as Battinson from this point forward, brings a layered and complex authenticity to the character. This Bruce Wayne isn't the type we're used to seeing. This isn't the rich playboy with girls on each arm who loves fancy cars and big parties. Well, he's still rich, but nothing else. This Bruce is a reclusive, broken man who's never recovered from the trauma of his youth. The trauma plays out differently for Bruce and Batman, driving Bruce to shut down and close off the world. He then funnels all of the hatred and anger and confusion into the Batman, and as a result, we see one of the most ruthless and violent interpretations of the vigilante that we've ever seen. I mean, he has no problem turning a clown-headed street thug's face into hamburger helper on the floor of a subway terminal. And let's be clear, this is a dark and gritty movie. Not in the way that the early DCEU tried to be, but a raw, unpolished sort of dark. Matt Reeves is an amazing director. This is the man who gave us Cloverfield, Let Me In, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and War for the Planet of the Apes. This guy knows how to craft an engaging, character-driven story with riveting action, so I don't want to take anything away from him as a filmmaker by comparing this film to another director's work, but as I watched it, I kept thinking, this feels like a David Fincher comic book movie. Fincher is known for that raw, unpolished style that I mentioned earlier, that darker side of realism and violence. The Batman seems to take inspiration from those films, primarily from Seven and Zodiac, and this interpretation of the Riddler is clearly inspired by those killers. In Seven, the killer is known as John Doe. His methods are methodical and his targets are deliberate. He's always one step ahead of the detectives that pursue him, and with each crime scene, with each murder, his intentions become a little clearer. This is the Riddler to a T, and part of the puzzles left for the Batman are a series of encoded messages, just as the real-life Zodiac did while he tormented San Francisco all those years ago. This is for sure one of those comic book films that grounds itself with a certain level of realism. I'm not saying everything here is believable, of course it's not, but similar to the Dark Knight trilogy, it steers clear from addressing superhumans or aliens in spandex. It really does take Batman back to his roots and showcases the fact that he doesn't have all the answers yet. He's still learning, and there are moments where that is extremely clear. He makes mistakes and he adjusts. The movie is 3 hours, and I realize that sounds like it's too long, but it isn't. The Batman earns every minute of its runtime. The pacing is fantastic, and from the opening moments of the movie, which are surprisingly terrifying, you're hooked. You're along for the ride, and you want to be, because as the Riddler says, you're part of this too. There is sure to be a sequel. This movie is built for a continuation, and not in the cheap way where it ends with a cliffhanger and makes you wait years to see the follow-through, but because throughout the film, we see the evolution of the Batman as a person. His journey isn't over yet. There's a lot more to see, and when it's done as well as this one was, I want to be there to watch it. 3 hours, 5 hours, 10, I don't care. Make it as long as you want, and for the love of all that is good, for the love of everything that we love in this world, bring back Matt Reeves to make it. Put him in the director chair again. We don't need massive shared cinematic world building. We don't need 20 heroes and 80 villains with shared backgrounds and cameos. We just need the Bat and the Cat heating up the screen. Jim Gordon and the Batman teaming up to take out the trash, and maybe, just maybe, there used to be a graying tower alone. No! Don't do it. Don't do it. Drop us a follow on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and stay tuned for more great content. I'm Joshua Ryan, and I'll see you next time.